We, as a state, since the 1800s, cleared nature to make it useful for human needs. And now we have an opportunity to start reversing some of that. Indiana is so rich in plants and animals. It's so alive. There's just no comparison between a national park like Arches National Park and our Glaciers Inn Nature Preserve. There's no comparison to the amount of life we can pack into a site here in central Indiana. So the work we do is unbelievably important. For instance, at our Glaciers Inn Nature Preserve in Johnson County, 5 new species to science have been discovered. They're all spiders. So once we've started protecting really special places here and gotten the researchers on site, we're finding new species to science.
When any taxonomic expert of any area that you can pick, be it birds, butterflies, moths, beetles, when they dig in, they find that the natural areas are the places where all the endangered and threatened species are. Dr. Lindsay did the first systematic inventory looking for natural areas of any state, and one of the targets of SILTE is to protect all of those natural areas that were included in Lindsay's book. Lindsay's book only looked at the natural areas that were known at the time. Now we're looking for finding remnants of all kinds of natural areas, wetlands and prairies and so on as well. And SILTE is continuing an important work of protecting those natural areas. And they've been successful not only in protecting natural areas and building the mechanism to do so, but in spreading the message. When you preserve an old-growth woods, you're preserving a lot of rare things, even though you don't know that you're doing it. So, for example, Meltzer Woods has the state champion swamp white oak, just like this little guy right here. The state champion, the largest known swamp white oak in the state, is in Meltzer's Woods.
To think that in Johnson County, full of soybeans and cornfields, that we have something with topography, that we have something that is unglaciated, that we have high quality old growth woods, where we have high quality plants. Blossom Hollow was one of the first places I brought my students to when I started teaching my plant communities course, because it is so unique. For instance, this parasitic plant that we have here, the Canophilus americana, the cancer root. This plant represents the way Indiana was before European settlers moved in, and the fact that it is so abundant. There are thousands and thousands of those specimens here. You just don't find this, particularly in central Indiana. So this is a gem.
The Land Trust is a really important partner when I start thinking about how we're going to protect the future of the White River. I say that because it's kind of going to take a village to both clean this river up and protect its supply for drinking water and recreation. And the role that they play is to help actually physically protect land. Those properties provide a really important buffer to the whole system. Otherwise, we're just facing, nonstop development pressure and nonstop invasive pressure. But when we can step in with sort of a second line of defense where we actually have protected lands at the edge of the river, it's a win, and it's one of the biggest wins.
I think we've had a lot of success the last few years because we made the decision to really focus on using sound science and allow science to lead our work.
It's really important that they do use the science, because that's what we use when we're grading properties and when we're trying to evaluate whether this is something that really comes into our wheelhouse, if you will.
SILTE has to acquire when they can acquire. But you get to a point to where you then have to develop what you've acquired. And we have some beautiful nature preserves, but we're still working on trails and other things so that the public can get in and use them. And I see that as being probably a major thrust in the next 30 years.
In our mission statement, we talk about connecting Hoosiers to the wonder of nature, and that's really our goal. It is part of who we are as humans. When we get into these beautiful natural spaces, you feel it. When I talk about how we're rooted in sound science, there's a lot of art to this too. You can't use science to explain the feeling, the euphoria, the wonder that you feel when you're in an awe-inspiring natural area.
I had the privilege of working with a couple of women, and we had a grant to bring Girls Incorporated students out here. At first they were afraid they were going to get their shoes dirty and there might be a bug and were we going to see a snake. But by the time we left, the girls were saying this was one of the most exciting days that they had, that they heard birds and they saw wildflowers and they looked at trees. And we all know that taking a walk in the woods is good for us, but if you could see those children and the impact that that had upon them, that's not something you can teach.
When all these beautiful natural areas are protected 30 years from now and the million trees are planted, the organization can really kind of change its focus on great stewardship. We're already doing that, but I think the organization will kind of evolve into a natural area management organization because we won't have to worry about protecting more land. We can just take great care of what we've protected over the last 60 years.
You can see I'm tearing up, so that'll tell you something. I met with Cliff Chapman yesterday, and I told Priscilla that we talked about families. For half the time we talked, we were talking business also, but we also talked about families, and all the folks that work for Silty, they're very, very close to one another. It's a small organization. It's not 1,000 people.
But it's mighty.
It's mighty.
They're mighty. It's a mighty staff.
They get an awfully lot done for a very small staff, and it's money well spent.
What's exciting is the approach that the Central Indiana Land Trust is taking to participating in a much larger conversation and a much larger set of strategies. Their presence in this state and leading with a conservation voice and being able to shore up some of these really special places is a legacy that will protect the cultural heritage of Central Indiana that a lot of other partners can't do.
Our strategic conservation plan that we've outlined to have sites to protect over the coming decades is very ambitious. There is no way possible we can do it on our own. There's just no way. We can use sound science, we can use good business practices, we can have a great and talented staff, but none of it's possible without our supporters, our members, our donors. They really believe in us. And I say they and us, but really it's a big we. We're in this together.